Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
At Villere's Florist, we deliver the magic of flowers 7 days a week to the North Shore and South Shore in the New Orleans area. Whether it's for birthday parties, baby celebrations, Villere's provides colorful floral displays for all. With a store full of fresh-cut flowers, exotic tropical flowers, orchids, roses, and even fruit baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villere's Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969. Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House has been shucking here since 1979. Located at 3117 21st Street in Metairie, Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House offers raw, fried, and grilled oysters, as well as a range of Cajun and Creole dishes. Enjoy a dozen with a smile.
Good evening and welcome to another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Over the next hour, we talk about the home teams, Saints, LSU, Tulane, Pelicans. We'll roll through, talk some prep sports. Got a great panel as always. Rene Nadeau of CrestCitySports.com and so much more. Also, Chris Hagan of Fox 8 Sports are on the panel tonight. Gentlemen, thanks for coming down as always.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And we'd like to start off telling folks a little bit about what you're involved in. Rene, take it away.
Well, you know, both of you guys know. People say, what do you do when football season? Football season never ends.
Right.
It just goes from one phase to the other. I'm a color analyst on TV for college football. Write for CrescentCitySports.com. Also work for CBS Radio and WFAN for Saint home games and some Pelican games and bowls and whatever CBS needs down here. So busy all the time, but it's football season is always a lot of fun.
So you're about to be real busy for this guy because at Fox 8 it's wall-to-wall football shows right around the corner.
Yeah, even ahead of football season, we've got a Saints countdown right now on the Final Play app. I think we're into the top 10 this week, so you can be sure to check that out on the Final Play app. A ton of other Saints content as well. We've got SEC Media Days coming up next week. I'll be heading to Atlanta on Sunday to start that coverage with LSU football and the SEC. So a lot going on. The closer we get to the end of July, the closer we get the football season back, and I think all of us will be a lot busier when that happens.
Yeah, you can't miss the Final Play. I mean, you got to check it out every single Sunday. Again, covering everything in sports. And, of course, the app. I got it on my phone. You got to check it out. Everything they're doing, including your great blog.
Yep. Fantasy Football blog will be back at it soon enough.
Yep, no doubt. Guys, let's talk a little LSU first. And, you know, again, this week, Ed Ogeron talked a little bit about the offense. He talked about, and I called it a gumbo offense because I never realized that it wasn't just Ensminger sitting down and putting together the offense. Literally, it was Tommy Robinson. It was Craig, the offensive line coach, Jerry Sullivan, the wide receivers coach, and Ed Ogeron, along with Ensminger, all kind of coming together to put this offense together. Now, we don't know what type of offense it's going to be. We hear it's going to be wide open and you're going to throw the ball. Ultimately, you know, to be able to win in the SEC, you've got to be balanced. You've got to be able to run the football. Some real question marks that really, when you start talking about the offensive side of the ball, and it really starts first at the quarterback position. I'll take you first, Rene, because everybody has already deemed the heir apparent, the next great quarterback at LSU is Joe Burrow. Meanwhile, just a year or so ago, the savior was Miles Brennan. You had a chance to sit down with Miles Brennan recently, and again, your thoughts on this quarterback competition? Everybody's already, again, I don't want to say pencil. They've already put it in pen. It's Burrow's job. Miles Brennan thinks different.
Well, you know, and I might be the minority, but I did do a story with Miles a few weeks ago, and kind of take you back a little bit. The Canada offense last year was complicated from a fan standpoint, but it was a little more complicated than people think for the players. To do a jet sweep, the quarterback had 4 or 5 checks. When you have that many checks on a seemingly simple play, a lot can happen. You know, a read with an offensive lineman or something, not hearing the check or whatever it may be. So they kind of simpled it down a little bit. Simple down doesn't mean it's a vanilla offense. It's just, you know, things.
The verbiage.
Yeah, the verbiage. Jerry Sullivan has been involved with Steve Ensminger once they took over everything. But you know, the quarterback situation, getting back to that, I really feel, and whether Miles starts or not, he's a better quarterback than what people may think right now. He was backing up Danny Etling last year, and he is his second offense he played in. And I remember Trent Dilfer saying his opinion, saying in the Elite 11 camp that he saw a lot of Jared Goff in him. I think right now, could be wrong, I really think that because of the timetable, they report in early August, 4th, 5th, or 6th. The first game is September 2nd. They're going to game plan that final week before the game. So that would give Joe Burrow 3 weeks, 2.5 to 3 weeks to go over the quarterback situation. Now, something you and I talked about off the air is that there's only 30-40% of the offense in right now. But it's the familiarity with the players that is an advantage to Miles Brennan. Right now, I really do think that Miles Brennan has the best chance of starting the first snap against Miami. Where it goes from there, it'll be entirely up to him. I just think because of the skills, and again, people have talked about spring game, which was a pillow fight, touch football game. I don't put a whole lot of stock in the spring game itself. That's the only thing the fans and the media could see for the most part, but things I've heard and talked to and stuff, there's a lot more to it than that. Quarterback situation, again, I just think that right now, I think Miles Brennan is more likely to start the first snap.
Now, Sean Vazan had an interview with a Cincinnati reporter who really went in depth on Joe Burrow on the final play this past week, and I thought it was a very, very enlightening interview. I did not realize that Burrow was as athletic as the reporter would lead us to believe. A guy that just can't get out of a tough situation if the defense is collapsing on him, but a guy that really truly is a dual threat and was when he was in high school in Ohio, was Mr. Ohio.
Yeah, I think that's nothing but a positive for the offense. I mean, who doesn't want a quarterback that has the ability to make something happen? I mean, we even saw it from a guy like Danny Etling at times who wasn't as athletic as Joe Burrow is. So I think that's nothing but a positive. I'll go back to what you said about the offense being put in. You know, I think that's a positive that there are a number of eyes on it and a number of people involved in that. I think that might have been a fracture in Orgeron and Matt Canada's relationship, is just they weren't always on the same page. Now, while I don't necessarily agree with Orgeron being so hands-on with the offense, given his defensive background, I do think it helps that if he's along with every step of the process, there's no surprises and they have a good relationship. You don't want a strained relationship between your coordinator and head coach. I do think it's not as much Burrow's job as we may think right now. Obviously, he brings a lot of a nice skill set into the position, and he will give Miles Brennan a lot of competition. I think, I'll always go back to iron sharpens iron. I think if you have quality quarterbacks in the room, whoever does win the job will have had to have earned it. And I think that's what Orgeron puts an emphasis on. A couple of weeks ago when he talked at walk-ons, he said, in his perfect world, he wants the players and the coaches and everybody in that building to see Brennan, McMillan, Narcisse, Burrow, whoever, win that job, and there's no question who's your starting quarterback. And you want confidence in them going forward, because as big as the coaching, as big of an issue as coaching may have been, or skill of the quarterback may have been in the past, there was always just this imbalance of, with Anthony Jennings, going back to that, his first year starting, people were ready to put Brandon Harris in right away because he was an early enrollee. Then after that, if Brandon isn't doing well, then there was a call for Etling. And then under Etling last year, there's a call for Miles Brennan. And it creates a lot of tension that doesn't need to be there. So someone needs to win it. I think there may be a transfer, who knows, but someone needs to win it, and I think that can put a lot of minds at ease with whoever's the starting quarterback going forward. One
of the big questions with Miles Brennan is, again, the ability to put on muscle. How has he done that in the offseason?
He's put some weight on. I don't think, and I know where you're going with that, but I don't think it would be good because of the beating he may take.
Yes.
But I don't think it's absolutely imperative that he's going to have to add 20 pounds, to be a starting quarterback. I know there's so many more things to it. Example, Tommy Hudson. remember, he was similar frame.
Yeah, but different era.
Different era. But you know, the thing is that whoever the quarterback is, the defense is going to be the ace in the sleeve, because this defense is going to be lights out. I mean, so much better. And also, the offensive line, which surrendered 19 sacks last year, and you guys both remember, it was a patchwork many times. You were just trying to get in. You had two true freshmen starting. And Sadiq Charles' first true freshman to ever start the opening game. And Eddie Ingram, that was the first tandem true freshman since 1986. You got experience now. You got competition on the offensive line. And the offensive line is actually a strength of that offense. And that's going to certainly bode well for whoever the quarterback is. He's going to have time. And he's going to have experienced guys in front of him and confidence in that offense. And again, the defense can shrink the field for that offense, turnovers. And if the offense only has to score 12 or 14 points, it's a whole lot easier mountain to climb than having to score 25, 30 points a game in order to win.
But you have no idea who the running back is going to be. You still have a question mark at quarterback. I think they've got the most talented, deep wide receiver core they've ever had, but again, unproven talent there as well. You
have unproven talent, but like Rene was saying, the talent is there. The quarterback has to be the guy that, I hate to use the phrase game manager, but just someone who gets the ball to the playmakers, and that's been a problem in the past, is just effectively getting guys the ball. Brandon Harris had a lot of arm strength, a lot of talent, but just wasn't accurate when he needed to be. And I think when you've got freshmen like Terrace Marshall and Jamar Chase, and a guy like Jonathan Giles, who Coach O just raves about, and when you look at his Texas Tech footage and what he can do once he gets the football, you've got to be able to get him the ball. We saw Clyde Edwards-Helaire, even in limited playing time, make a couple of nice just swing pass catches and turn those into nice gains. I don't know that they're going to have a great between the tackles runner. They say Nick Brossett's the most patient by far.
You hope Chris Curry can come in and do that, man.
Right. And he's a bigger back with size that can kind of eat up some of those carries and take some of those blows and do some of that grunt work and short down his situations. But the quarterback has to be someone that can effectively get the ball to those playmakers, not turn it over, and when they need to score, when they need to hold on to the ball, when they have a situation where there are going to be some close games where they're going to need to hang on to the ball and let their defense rest, I think that's when what they're going to be relied upon to do. But I also think, Insminger's done a good job of emphasizing that he still wants to take shots down the field. He wants to be a big play guy. So I think it's going to take a number of things for the quarterback to win it, but most of all, just not be a liability in that position.
If you would piggyback on what Rene said about the defense, because I agree with Rene, that's where the season will kind of be in the balance on. If the defense can play top 10 type SEC defense, top 10 defense in the country, that will allow the offense, which is still kind of getting its sea legs, to have the opportunity to kind of stay in games.
Yeah, you look at every level of that defense, and you don't find too many flaws. I mean, you look at the defensive line, which is a huge strength with Rashard Lawrence. Ed Alexander should come back full strength. Braden Fehoko, another guy from Texas Tech who's been raved about. You've got Devin White, who could be a top 10 pick next year, one of the best linebackers, if not the best linebacker in the entire country. Greedy Williams, another guy at corner who's projected at linebacker. You've got young guys like Jacob Phillips and Tyler Taylor who showed flashes at linebacker. You've got experience with John Battle in that secondary, but you've also got a guy like Grant Delpit who started. There's experience all over. The only position where they're not terribly deep is defensive back. You've got Greedy, but outside of that, you've got just Kerry Vincent, John Trey Kirkland, Manny Netherly, a guy who switched over from wide receiver. They're going to have to play Kelvin Joseph, who played safety in high school at corner. And then they've got the transfer from Stanford coming in. So they're not quite as deep there, but still, I think as a unit, and when you look at the turnover in college football, you can't ask for much more coming back when you've got not just experience, but quality upperclassmen at every level of the defense.
What do you like about the defense?
Man, there's a lot of athleticism there, and K'Lavon Chaisson is wow, he's a lights out guy. I mean, he is speed off the edge. He's a lot of Arden Key, and Rashard Lawrence is a leader. I think they're going to be really, really good. Glenn Logan from Destrehan, I mean, he's going to be in the rotation, and when he comes in, there's no drop off. They can bring guys. They 6-8 deep in the defensive line, and very, very little drop off. Neil Farrell's a guy people don't know much about, who's going to be really, really good, really good. And again, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, but linebackers can run. Devin White. At this time last year, if I'd have said, you know, I think LSU can beat Florida, Auburn, and Tennessee. You know, I don't know. So, having said that, there's so much uncertainty because there's so many guys who are going to start and be key guys, the running back, quarterback, the receivers. Uncertainty doesn't mean failure. It just means, you know, there's uncertainty with the. I tell you what, the opponents won't know how to play them.
Right.
But they certainly have the ability to win 8 games. That's not unrealistic. And you know, with the bounce of the ball, you don't know what can happen. Could they fall to 6-6? Yes. But I really think, realistically, they could win 8 games and maybe 9.
You know, I agree with you, and I talked about on the radio show a couple of days ago. The one thing that the advantage that LSU has, at least early, is, again, nobody's going to know what this offense looks like. So, again, Miami has nothing to game plan for. They have no clue. Maybe they could go back a couple of years ago when Ensminger was the interim OC, but for the most part, nobody really knows what's going on. And, you know, as you go forward within the year, you can have packages for Georgia and Alabama that they've never seen because this is an offense that the bow hasn't been taken off the present yet.
Yeah, I certainly do think that is an advantage. They've got, obviously, the challenge of Miami, but, you know, they've already been game planning for Miami. So what they take into that game will show us a little bit. Then they've got a couple of lesser opponents to kind of work kinks out, you know, figure a couple things out before you get into October. October and November of that schedule, when you look at Georgia and Mississippi State and Ole Miss, Florida, Alabama, Arkansas. I mean, it gets tough in there for sure. But there is time, you know, like Rene said, for them to pull themselves to maybe a 7 or 8 win team. I think last year they surprised us with some of the games that they were able to pull out. You know, if nothing else, they're a team that fights. You don't want to see them get their back against the wall like they did after the Troy game last year, because that means something probably went wrong in September. But to their credit, last year when their backs were against the wall and people were counting them out and really saying this team could finish sub 500, they really bounced back strong against the rest of their schedule and some probably better teams. So you've got to hope that Orgeron has another good coaching job like that in him.
Well, and a sub-500 year would put the whole program in a tailspin because there's a ripple effect there. Obviously, again, whether Orgeron is going to be able to hold on to his job. And then what I want to roll into right now is the 2019 class. And you've been out reporting on it. You talk about it all the time. I mean, just this week, Dante Starks from Everett gave a verbal commitment to LSU. They have been rolling with verbal commitments. Zach Edwards opened up his recruiting again, maybe because he's looking at the linebackers that they're bringing in right now. Your thoughts on the class, and I'll go to Rene.
I think it's been phenomenal. I mean, when Ed Orgeron says he wants to put the walls back up around Louisiana and kind of stop some of these outside schools, Alabama, from coming in and stealing guys, this is when you have to strike in Louisiana. Orgeron's known as a recruiter, and specifically a Louisiana recruiter, so when the state has as much talent as it does right now, when you look at Sosfer and Cardell Thomas and Stingley and Starks and John Emery at Destrehan and the number of really talented guys, you've got to be able to go out and get them, and that's what they're doing right now. So this is the time for LSU to have a top 4, top 5, really should be better than that recruiting class when you've got a lot of 4- and 5-star guys within the state, and they've done a great job with it. I mean, we saw Derek Stingley kind of start the domino effect. He was the first of 5 commitments that week alone. And I think guys recognize that. And on top of that, guys want to go out and bring in other guys. You can look into the class of 2021, and TJ Finley at Ponchatoula, I talked to him, and he said, I'm already trying to go out and get receivers for the class of 2021, so he has guys to throw to. So again, it is a bit of a ripple effect because as fun as it is to look forward to the class of 19, 20, 2021, I think Finley's 20.
20.
Yeah, 20. I said 21.
20.
As fun as it is to look toward the future, you've got to handle business now because fans like to look forward to the future too, but if you don't start well, they're going to quickly be reminded of the present and why they may or may not want you there at head coach.
Rene, you've seen a lot of great Louisiana recruiting class. You've been doing recruiting a long time.
Yeah.
Compare and contrast this upcoming 2019 class to class of the past.
2001.
Okay.
Marcus Spears, Michael Clayton,
Wow.
that group.
Really?
Yes, absolutely. This class is so strong, and You know, you get guys who can come in now, and Sasori mentioned, guys like that can come in, even though, will Lawrence come back and all for Hoko? I don't know, but I mean, he's a guy who can get in the rotation and play. You got guys, freshmen, that they being recruited that are committing or on the radar that can come in 2019 and play. I want to back up a little bit. New Orleans area, and I do a story on this every year, on the average, the New Orleans metropolitan area, and this is the North Shore and River Parishes, turns out between 35 and 40, sometimes more, guys on NFL rosters. You're not just talking about the Mannings, and 35 to 40 guys on NFL rosters in August. So, you know, there's a lot of guys that LSU's recruiting, and some of these guys might be three-star guys and everything else. There's guys from the New Orleans area. And I'm just going to throw a name out there that LSU likes a lot, Chester Kimbrough, the kid from Warren Easton. And you know, and you're thinking, well, why would he be going up to another cornerback? Well, I just don't think the class is going to stay like it is right now. There's going to be some changes. There'll be some adjustments. Got 18 commits. They're going to drop it a one or two. So they're going to commit the best player or try to get the best players. But with wins, it's certainly going to solidify that class. But, you know, what a dilemma it would be if Orgeron's got a top 2 or 3 class recruiting commitments, and a 6-6.
No, I know. That's and
what do you do?
But can you hold on to those guys too? Because remember, there'll be a lot of negative recruiting from other coaches around the country. I mean, right now you talk about the kid from Warren Easton. You got to keep Tony Hull out of New Orleans. From Kansas, because again, he's coming in and he's starting a pipeline up there. You know, especially when you start talking about some of the public schools in the city. I mean, he's done a really great job. I mean, they've got a lot of guys that have made their bones on high schools here in New Orleans, or on staffs with the LSU or Tulane, and moved on to other universities, and they got inroads into the state.
David Johnson, who was at St. Aug at Tennessee. I mean, yeah, there's a bunch of guys that come in here and they got a relationship with the coaches, and you know this area. I mean, Louisiana's great, but New Orleans metropolitan and surrounding area, I mean, turns out town like no other. Really does.
Guy, Rene, how good can Tulane be this year?
The quarterback, Jonathan Banks, no one player means more to his team in Louisiana than Jonathan Banks. And every year I come up with a first team, all Louisiana, preseason, offense and defense, second and third and fourth. He's my MVP. He's makes such a difference at Tulane. And with him, he means 3 or 4 wins. I mean, he's so good. He can carry the team on his back. Tulane, the offensive line again, which was a really sore spot a few years ago. 91 starts with the guys who are playing, the 5 starters. That's a big plus. Defensive coach, the defensive team has done a great job. Coach Curtis. And but I think they have the potential not only win 6 games. I think they have the potential to win 8 games. I think Tulane is going to take that step. Willie Fritz has done a great job. They have outstanding receivers. Corey Dolphin, a guy coming from Texas Tech, very much like Dontrell Hilliard, very much like him. And Bradford last year, he averaged 6.2 yards a carry, which was pretty stout. So they have a good rushing attack. They should have it. Banks is a dual threat. Good offensive line, and a defense. They have all the makings of really making a splash. And look at a couple of games last year. You know, a point here, a point there. They easily could have been 8 wins.
Yeah, somebody making a decent call. They're in a bowl game.
They're in a bowl game.
No doubt about that. You cover the Greenies. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I would agree. I think Banks is huge, and you look at a couple of performances last year, the Army game, and some of the hits he took, some of the 4th downs he converted with his legs. I love that Coach Fritz isn't afraid to make some of those 4th and short calls because he knows what he has at quarterback and what Jonathan Banks can do with his arm and his legs to make things happen. And when you look at, you know, they started 3-2, second state year they started 3-2, and then things kind of got dicey. That Houston game at home last year, the way that they played and the toughness they showed late to finish that game off against a Cougars team that was rallying was excellent. To go into SMU and put up 30-plus points, should have been obviously another touchdown, was excellent. And the way that Jonathan Banks performed really those last 4 or 5 games, I think, is his potential, and he'll get even better from that. And had that happened, I mean, you look at the furious comeback they had against South Florida. Had they had some of those performances from Banks in that offense a little sooner, they'd probably win 6 or 7 games, maybe last year. So I think the expectations are higher. I do think they were on that verge, and they can get over that hump finally this year and certainly get back into a bowl game. I think that's the expectation. And when you do bring back a guy like Banks, as long as you keep him healthy, which Banks says, Coach Fritz has told him first down or out of bounds, you certainly have a much better chance.
Chris, that was my next question for both you guys. Who's behind him? Because you're really banking on, no pun intended, Banks staying healthy the entire year. The whole season kind of revolves around him. You want to take that next step, but you don't have the quality depth maybe that again, other programs have, because he's still in the infant stage of kind of turning that program around. So, you got to have Banks healthy, or again, everything may go for naught. You
do. I mean, Banks was pivotal on where they had issues, really the first couple of games maybe, and then certainly the year before was third and middle to third and long situations, and Banks showed the ability to convert those, which was huge for that offense. I mean, so many times, how many times have we watched, as well as their defense played, them just punt back and forth, but Tulane never able to get that field goal or that drive to hold them off or whatever they needed, and I think Banks gave them that. I'm not sure any other quarterback on the roster does that for him right now.
Yeah. Rene can...
Dane Bedford is one of the guys that was backing them up, but that offense changes. If Banks goes down, it's not the same offense. They don't the same play call, it's not the same play sheet. So, and the confidence that he brings, and the team looks up to him, know that he can make a play. And when you're playing against Jonathan Banks, the defense has to play against 11 against 11. It's, the quarterback, you have to account for this guy and almost spy him, because he can hurt you with his legs, and he can make plays, and you can see he's a game changer.
You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports. Our guest tonight, Chris Hagan of Fox 8 Sports, Rene Nadeau of CrescentCitySports.com. I'm your host, Eric Asher. We'll be right back.
Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration has been family-owned and operated since 1989. Burkhart has energy-efficient solutions and offers brands such as Mitsubishi ductless AC units and Amana, the only manufacturer with a lifetime unit replacement warranty. Burkhart's offers maintenance bundle packages that include servicing your AC, generator, and tankless water heater. For more information on the services Burkhart's provides, visit acpromise.com. Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration, providing comfort for life.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's diners, drive-ins, and dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Tonight, Rene Nadeau of CrescentCitySports.com and Chris Hagan of Fox 8 Sports are on our panel. Guys, let's shift gears to the Pelicans. Pretty volatile week last week. I mean, it's funny that on my radio show, and I don't know if that's ever happened in the history of New Orleans, where you're a week or so, 2 weeks out from training camp, I talk to Pelicans every single day. I mean, almost 2 hours every single day, because of everything that went down. Boogie Cousins defects, heads to Golden State. Of course, all the drama that went with that. And then, of course, the real shocker, Rajon Rondo heading into the Lakers for a $9 million contract. Boogie getting 5.3, the taxpayers' mid-level exception with Golden State. They bring in Julius Randle from the Los Angeles Lakers, 2 years, $18 million. That is really a 1 year, $9 million contract, because there's an option year in the second year. And he's going to take he's going to opt out, because he can, whether it's with the Pelicans or somewhere else, he's going to get more money. And of course, hometown kid Elfrid Payton comes in, $2.7 million with the part of the mid-level exception, which is one of the reasons why Rondo ended up moving on, because they did not have the full mid-level exception to give to Rondo. I'll start with you first, Chris. Your thoughts on what has transpired over the last week with the Pelicans. Are they a better club, or are they a club that now will be struggling to get in the playoffs? Your thoughts?
I think it's tough to call them better right now, and that doesn't have as much to do with Boogie as it does with Rajon Rondo. And look, I was a guy, I came on the show a number of times, and I do think Boogie made them a better team. I think Boogie gave them the opportunity to compete with some of the elite, like the Warriors and the Rockets, because of what we saw them do at times in the regular season with Boogie and where they seemed to be when he went down with his injury. But at minimum, you wanted to keep the roster that they had in the playoffs, and they didn't have the opportunity to do that with Rajon Rondo leaving. And so that's where I think they take a step back. Then you look at the Western Conference as a whole, and the bigger picture is they just got the best player in the world in their conference now. I don't think we'll ever see a LeBron James team not make the playoffs. So you've got to account for the rise of the Lakers, the Nuggets, who are a game from making the playoffs. The Spurs might take a step back, but do you really count them out? Right. I mean, I don't know many teams in the West that really took a step back. The Wolves may take a step back, but still, it's going to be another dogfight to get into the playoffs. And I don't know if the Pelicans got that much better in order to be able to make that battle. It's hard to peg teams in and out of the playoffs right now, but I can tell you the teams that are probably going to have to fight a little bit harder than others. And I think the Pelicans will have to do that, even with the addition of Randall and the roster they have now.
Your thoughts?
You know, Julius Randle, obviously 4 years younger, and you know, he was coming from that fast-paced offense with the Lakers. Pelicans were the number one pace, Lakers were number 3, so he's used to that. Great in pick and roll, and he is as good an offensive rebounder as Boogie was.
Yes. And he's also in the paint, too.
He's in the paint. And, you know, thinking about this, too, and I'm not hammering Boogie, because as Chris said, you can't replace him.
I'll be the guy to hammer Boogie. That's okay.
Second most technicals in the NBA. And yeah, that's a consideration. And, I mean, there were times that he got volatile, hurt the team and things like this. And this is more Anthony Davis's team now than it was a year ago. And you know, there was, I'm not saying a split, but Boogie had certainly drawn, you know, more of the team with him. I don't mean personally. Sure. It's just people with perceiving it that way. And this is more Anthony Davis's team now with Boogie out of that. Elfrid Payton, he's not going to replace Rondo because Rondo is just, you know, he was a coach on the field. Yeah. But you got Solomon Hill and you got a Jinxa, and they represent $17.5 million. I don't think the moves are finished yet. I don't know how they're going to do it, but who would have thought they'd get Mirotic last year? Yes. And Dell Demps knows what's at stake. Everything is at stake. So you're going to pull out all stops and whatever you need to do. If it's going to cost you another couple of number ones down the road. But I just think the dealing, wheeling and dealing is not over.
Yeah, I would agree. Guys, I'm going to take a different tack, and I've done it since all this has transpired. When I look at Boogie Cousins next season, and I look at a guy that's struggling to come back from an Achilles injury, and look, I mean, he may be a miracle. He may be the one guy that comes back and he's as healthy as he was previously. I doubt it, okay? And now we know Golden State has already told him, look, take your time, okay? Yep. You come back, we need you for the playoff run. We don't need you during the season. We're going to beat everybody handily during the season. We need you for matchups in the playoffs. You look at Rajon Rondo, 33 years old, going with the Lakers, a guy that again, didn't play full bore all season long. But when it became time for the playoffs run and the playoffs, off the charts. Basketball IQ, leadership, what he did off the floor was as big as what he did on the floor.
He was playing more than 40 a game.
No doubt. I mean, doing great. But I'm looking at a guy at some point. When does he start to descend? Okay, maybe it's not next year. Maybe it's the year after. But then I look at a young guy, Elfrid Payton, who now is going into an offense that I think is tailor-made for his skill set. He's a guy that can slash. He gets to the basket. Again, when you look at his assists, like 6.4 assists last season. I think Drew Holiday had 6.2. So the guy is a pass-first point guard. The struggles, the same as Rajon Rondo. The ability to shoot the outside shot, the ability to shoot the three-pointer consistently. That's something, again, you have to work on in the gym. If he is playing for a contract, so ultimately, to me, he's going to have to be a guy that's going to have to go out there and work on his outside shot. The other part of his game, with the exception of the basketball IQ and the experience, hey, that comes with time. Okay, he's still a very young player. You're going to miss that with Rondo. Randall, I think, brings you the total package. Now, he's not a big guy, and that's maybe the knock against him. He's 6'9", but he plays bigger. And he's a physical guy inside, can rebound, can score. He can handle the ball in getting the ball at the court if necessary. He's got a decent mid-range jumper, but again, what you like about him is the physicality that he brings to the table, and the fact that you know where he's going to be. He's going to be in the paint, which is going to free Anthony Davis up. So when you look at the situation with Davis, with Boogie hurt and Rondo getting up in age, the Pelicans, when it's all said and done, may be in a better situation this year simply because of what transpired with those players moving on to another roster. I'd like to get you guys' opinion on that.
Well, and I agree with that. And the thing is that as I go back to what I said a second ago, Randall is used to this type of offense. It suits him to a T. He's not as big. He's 270. He's about 255, 260. He is a physical guy who throws his body around, and that is going to take a lot of weight off Anthony Davis. And again, the offensive rebounding and things like that, what he does, what he brings to the table is going to suit the offense they run. Mirotic, well, what a great addition he was last year with his shot and everything, and he's more acclimated to this offense. They have no presence. They've had nothing besides Anthony Davis in the middle, yes. And they needed somebody like this. And I don't think they could find anybody more suited than Julius Randle to this.
Yeah, I said it last year that when the playoffs, when Anthony Davis is trying to bang and he can't, and he physically just can't bang with guys like Draymond Green. And Green is an undersized center. They need a banger inside. Now, whether it's a guy that demands the basketball or not is immaterial. They need somebody that can rebound, block shots, etc. I think Randle brings that to the table. Your thoughts on my synopsis of what I believe may transpire this season?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's what your synopsis is what the Pelicans are banking on. The
right.
fact that Randle can give you what Boogie did, maybe a little more in different departments, and Elfrid Payton grows. He's not going to grow into Rondo overnight.
No way.
Over the year, but he can, he can grow. He can get better, and I guess you hope that what Rondo brought to this team in terms of experience and toughness and playoff mentality, you hope that rubbed off on Drew Holiday. You hope that rubbed off on Anthony Davis and other guys that witnessed firsthand what they have the potential of doing. I will say, it doesn't quite feel like some of the Pelicans rosters of the past where you're just grabbing at different pieces and parts and throwing it together like it's fantasy basketball and hoping it works, which you did with signings like Omer Asik. It feels like there is a game plan. They saw what they did in the playoffs, and they said, we're going to double up on that. We're going to go get a guard that can run and slash, and we're going to get another versatile big who can run the floor. And that's what they did.
Yes, they did.
So at the very worst, they built a team and added players that will keep pushing them in the direction that Alvin Gentry's offense wants to go, which is scoring. And they saw that, and Gentry said it 100 times in that Warriors series in just 5 games. After every game, you have to score 120 points to beat that team. And so I think you've added that in terms of guys with the ability to score. It's not like Rondo is giving you some crazy scoring numbers. Peyton can probably put up a few more points in that department, but you've got to have guys all over the floor that can score the basketball. I will say they still need a lights-out, knockdown shooter.
Yes.
Love what Etuan Moore did at times. He got hot. He played really well at times. They need someone who can be out there like a J.J. Redick type.
Yes.
Someone that when they get the ball, it's going in the hole if they're open.
Yeah.
Just an elite shooter. Nothing else. Just shoot. And so I think that's the only thing that team's missing in terms of kind of moving forward.
Yeah. Well, again, we've seen Trevon Blewett in the Summer League, 4 years out of Xavier, a guy who played with a great program, 6'5", a guy that is a lights-out shooter. The problem is, as we all know, is such a huge difference between Summer League and the NBA. Because you can get your shot off in the Summer League doesn't necessarily mean you can get your shot off in the NBA. Because you can play a little bit of defense in the Summer League doesn't mean that you're going to be able to play defense against 2s and 3s in the NBA. So, maybe he's a guy that can come in and help you. Maybe he might be a guy that ultimately other teams are looking at and saying, hey, he's a guy that can help us. And because the Pelicans are cash-strapped once again, they may be in a situation where they get into a bidding war like they had to do with Seth Curry a few years and lose that battle. Okay, Curry's kind of run around the NBA now with a couple teams, but the Pelicans thought they had him. They did not. But I think I agree with you. I think that's got to be what they're looking. They've got to get somebody that can be a knockdown shooter, especially now with losing Boogie's points, because Boogie, even though he's a center, was a guy that could shoot the ball from the outside.
And look, don't get me wrong. I don't think Blewett's going to be Ian Clark. But I remember when Ian Clark came here,
right.
I don't think people realize how good this guy, what an addition he was, how good he can be.
And a great re-addition to this team.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And the thing is, too, the thing that used to get under everyone's skin watching the Pelicans is when Boogie insisted on bringing the ball up and shooting, hoisting up a 3. You won't see Julius Randle doing that. And sometimes Boogie would hit it. Sometimes, he'd want to be a point center and bring it up. So that's something that also got the offense out of sync a little bit. You know, that he insisted on playing his game and stuff, and it didn't always fit the style that Alvin Gentry wanted to run.
And I'm sure you guys would agree that next year is the year that Davis can sign the Supermax deal, 35% of the salary cap, and you keep giving away draft choices. So you better be able to hit on the players that you have, and you better be able to make sure that over this season that he's feeling comfortable enough to say, you know what, I'll take that $40 million and I'll put my chips on the table for the Pelicans. You know, once he's got that contract, within a couple of years he can force his way out, but at least you'll know you have this guy in his prime, which is, again, we saw Chris Paul walk out the door in his prime, and you know, I think it would be devastating for basketball here in New Orleans if that happened.
Oh my goodness! I mean, that would be, you know, that would be like Drew Brees walking out.
Yeah,
it would. And the thing is that Anthony Davis, right now, I know someone close to the situation. He's very, very happy here. Feels very confident that this team can win. Loves Alvin Gentry. Everything seems the arrows point in the right direction. Will it would continue? But you know, you're gonna have to keep up. And as Chris said a little while ago, the teams in the West have gotten better. You got to keep up with the Joneses, and I'm not sure if the Pelicans have done that. They cannot do what they did last year. They got to take one step further.
You know, I'm gonna take it a step further. I don't know if a small market is able to compete anymore in the NBA. And I discussed that on this program last week, and also on my radio show. It's gotten too much where, again, just the luxury tax check, welfare check that you're going to get from the big markets that can go over the cap and can bring these players in on one-year deals that are taking less money than they would normally get with any other team to try to win a ring. I think it's very difficult, especially when you see a guy like LeBron James now heading to Los Angeles with Magic Johnson there. When those tandem get in a room and they're trying to recruit someone to come over, it's going to be hard to turn them down. You know, I think the NBA has to look at their model, much like the NFL, where there's some parity. Okay, it has to be more than just, you know, paying a team because you're able to go over the cap. I think they have to start looking at more of a hard cap that will give all teams an opportunity to be able to, especially in basketball, where, again, it's not like you need 22 on the field, okay? You need 5, okay? Where other, even small markets have an opportunity to be able to compete.
Well, it's one of the most dangerous positions that the Pelicans are in right now, because I think a lot of teams, you're hard-pressed to beat the Warriors next year, man, and a lot of teams are looking toward next summer when there are some prize names on that free agent market again that they can make a run at. And the Pelicans want to be one of those teams, but you can't take a step backward. You can't go back to the old reputation. You did it 1 year, and we saw it a couple years ago where they did it 1 year and then had some down seasons. Well, they've done it again and gotten into the playoffs and won a series, which was better than what they did last time AD was in the playoffs, and proven that a small market team can have some success and really push the Warriors just a little bit in that series. But you've got to take a step forward. That's the challenge when it comes to proving that even though the Pelicans have AD, that they're still worthy of getting another big name and another big free agent, which, you know, they'd like to do. And that's the challenge right now, because it is hard for small markets. I mean, OKC did it with Paul George, but still, that's not enough. They need another one.
Right. And then they get rid of Carmelo Anthony now because, again, their luxury, their salary this year with luxury tax, $300 million. Yeah. And now they no longer can afford Carmelo Anthony.
And that shows you what can happen when things go wrong so quickly, and all of a sudden you're like Memphis. Memphis is trying to get rid of Chandler Parsons. They've got some massive contracts that didn't work out because of the salaries that were given away 2 years ago that were just insane. Right. I could have told you back then Mike Conley and Chandler Parsons weren't the answer. Anyway, you see that, but then you see Houston looking to snatch up Carmelo Anthony because they lost Trevor Ariza, and so it's who can gather the most powers. Yeah. Anthony's far from his prime, but he could be a nice fit there. It's the Pelicans trying to find who's going to be a fit for them. I'm going to say next year because this year it's make the playoffs. The Warriors or the Rockets are going to win the West again, probably the Warriors. Next year Mirotic is off the books, and you hope you can move some of those other big deals like Hill or Agenza. And so next year's the year of free agency, I think, to play for, and the Pelicans can't afford to go backward.
Yeah, I definitely. Your thought. Now, we come from an era where we watched, you know, the Buccaneers go away at the ABA, and then the New Orleans Jazz play here for 4 seasons and 5 seasons, and ultimately leave to go to Salt Lake at a time when the NBA exploded with Magic Johnson and Larry Bird coming on the scene.
Well, that was a different NBA, as you know.
Absolutely.
And you know, they were hell bent on. The owner wanted to take him to Utah because that's where he was from, and you know they weren't going to do it. The NBA was different then. Right. It was basically.
But it was about teams then. Now it's about players.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, the thing is that the NBA or NFL, you just can't move a team. You have to go through the league now, and there's. You know, we saw what happened after.
And I don't think this team is going anywhere.
No, I don't think they're going
anywhere. I didn't want to put that out there.
No, I really people have a heart attack.
Not right now, at least.
Yeah, but I think they're solid, and the NBA is very much behind them, and ownership is solid.
But how can you compete? I mean, again, with the business model that's right now in the NBA, how can a small market truly compete? Now they could take that luxury tax welfare check, okay, every year for teams that go over the luxury tax. They got to pay the rest of the teams in the small markets to go over the luxury tax, but. How can you truly compete? Because basically what you are in a lot of cases a farm system. When you get one of these players that you draft, if you can't hold on to them long term, for them in their second or third contract to go elsewhere and win a championship.
You've got to prove you can win. Mm-hmm. That's what it comes down to. You look at OKC very nearly had the model a couple of years ago. Yes. They had Russell Westbrook. They had Durant on multiple contracts. They had to make a decision basically between James Harden and Serge Ibaka, and they picked wrong.
Right.
They gave the money to Serge Ibaka, and Harden goes to Houston. They had 3 MVPs. They had a team that
but going through the draft.
Yeah, like the Warriors
have done.
Exactly.
Right.
They set it up. They did that first. I worked in Missouri at the time. I covered some of those Thunder games. It was electric. I mean, it was like Oracle in Oakland. I mean, Oracle in Oklahoma City. I mean, that place erupted on every shot, and it was a lot of fun. And you had 3 guys who could bring the ball up the court, 3 guys who could shoot the 3, 3 guys who could make some big plays, and Russ and Harden and Durant. And they just kind of botched it. Scott Brooks maybe wasn't the best guy for it. But again, they proved they could win. That's how they got Durant on multiple contracts. They were a 3-1 lead on the Warriors from keeping, Durant from probably going to the Warriors. So it was very nearly a balanced NBA. We can blame OKC on all this mess if we want, but you just got to prove you can win in a small market, and you have to. That's the only way, because the allure, the endorsements, the media isn't going to get people to the small markets. It's winning.
Shift gears to the Saints. On July 18th, the rookies report, the vets report on the 25th, first practice the 26th. How good can this team be?
Well, last year, we all know they had some additions. And going back to back consecutive 7-9 seasons. And actually, 4 of the last 5 prior to last year was 7-9. 2012 was 11-5. So, your 4 out of 5 was 7-9. You had some additions, guys that just, Ramczyk, Alvin Kamara. Guys that, people didn't know were going to be this good, and the NFL didn't know it was going to be this good. Drew Brees had Mark Ingram had another 1,000-yard season. The defense and Klein. I think this defense can be better. Their strength is at linebacker. DeMario Davis, Klein, Anzalone. You hadn't seen him because he played 3 games. He's kind of a new guy.
I still love Craig Robinson.
Craig Robinson, I mean, my goodness.
Old faithful.
He is just unbelievable. The defensive secondary with Kurt Coleman, that's really going to upgrade that secondary. Yes. I think he's a better upgrade than Vaccaro. So they can be good, but their schedule is going to be tough. Can they win? How many games can they win? I think 9 or 10 games is realistic. I know that's a lot, but to say 12-4, and I don't know, 9 or 10 games, maybe 11. But I think with the schedule, and who knows with injuries and how good they beat Carolina 3 times with the playoffs. I don't know if that's going to happen again. I just think that last year things happened, fell in. Michael Thomas, key player, he's going to have to pick up his game. 104 catches, but only 5 touchdowns. And I think he's a guy that now, the defense, he's drawn a lot of attention.
Yes.
You're going to have to go to other options. And Cameron Meredith is a guy that I think hopefully is going to fill a role and step in. And Ben Watson, 61 catches last year. He'd have been a 3rd best receiver on the team, a really upgrade at that tight end position. And I think Kamara had 81 catches. So I think they've added some pieces. A lot of experience with the rookies, Marshawn Lattimore, and they're going to be better. The rookies last year are going to be better, Marcus Williams. So I think 11 wins is a realistic figure.
Right.
My favorite reference point that the Saints have to guard against is that 2014 team where, they were written into the NFC Championship game after they add Jarris Byrd because on paper they got better. And on paper they got better this year as well. But I do think there is a difference between this team and that team, and it's that the youth and the talent of guys like Marcus Williams and Alvin Kamara and Marshawn Lattimore and Ryan Ramczyk, the jump that they make going from an offseason where they had to train for private workouts and combine and the draft into an offseason where they really know what to expect and have their bodies that much more ready for the regular season. I think the jump that they make will be huge for the team. I love the addition of Demario Davis. Kurt Coleman, like Rene said, is going to be, I think he can be really outstanding back there in terms of another kind of center fielder, a lot like Marcus Williams is. The additions have been great. If Cameron Meredith works out, outstanding. I don't know if you get the same thing from Ted Ginn Jr., but I also don't know why not. The guy's proved that he's still got the speed to make defenses respect him. And so I think what we saw, they kind of, I guess, added the flashier names with the guys like Patrick Robinson, Demario Davis to the defense. I think they added what they needed to on offense smartly. I think with Ben Watson and Cameron Meredith, I don't want to call them budget signings, but smart signings that can produce. And I think the number one thing is with Drew Brees, we saw it on the second half of that playoff game against Minnesota. The guy, even at 38 years old, 39 now, can still pull out the goods when you need it to. And I think he's still, as good as they are in the run game and the offensive line and that receiver, and they upgraded the tight end, he still makes up for any other deficiencies you may have. And I think that's what they're kind of banking on. And that's what can put them in. I will say, like Rene said, saying they're going to win 11 or 12 games is tough. Because you look at the teams that didn't make the playoffs last year, like Seattle and Dallas, and what they have, and Ezekiel Elliott that can play a full season, and I can't ever count out Seattle for too long. The NFC South is a monster. Jameis Winston being suspended helps a lot because that kind of takes the Bucs out of the equation a little bit. But still, you've got Atlanta and Carolina who were all in the division race until week 16 and 17. So it's never going to be easy, but they should be better.
And they got to find a running back to back up, because Kamara, Trey Edmonds, whether it's Jonathan Williams, who I like a lot, Boston Scott, you don't know what's going to happen with him.
Rest that they just brought in.
Yeah, and I just think that they're going to have to, guys going to step up. I think Jonathan Williams could be the dark horse.
I like him too.
And he played, the running backs coached him at Arkansas, certainly has to help.
Sure. Guys, if I got any concerns right now, it's kind of maybe threefold. Run stuffing defensive tackle, and we've talked about that, okay? Again, when you're trying to go out and get Ndamukong Suh, there's a reason why. You help yourself at linebacker. You need somebody to keep the offensive line off of Sheldon Rankin so he can excel. Film being the great equalizer in the NFL, and you guys know this. I mean, again, you're talking about rookies that came in, they flashed immediately. They're in the top 100 list of the NFL players, et cetera, et cetera. Will there be a sophomore slump? Because now coaches have honed in on what they do well, what they don't do well, where their weaknesses and strengths are. And then another one for me is the offensive line. And I'm talking about the depth in the offensive line. Teron Armstead has not been able to stay healthy. Senio Kelementi is in Houston now. You brought in Jermon Bushrod because of his familiarity with the offense, and you want to make it a seamless transition. The offensive line's got to stay healthy. And you're going into those first 4 games without Mark Ingram, who has become a tenacious blocker for Drew Brees when you're going and passing downs and you don't want to tip your hand one way or the other. I agree. They've made some great additions to this team. I think they'll take another step. But you also got, again, with that, you got to hope that you don't get a rash of injuries at one particular position, especially the offensive line. And they got to solve that problem with defensive tackle, too.
Yeah, Onyemata and Sheldon Rankins was good. Tyler Davidson was good.
Right.
In fact, they went out and they got good defensive linemen. I don't know, I would say great. You've characterized those guys. The linebacking core, certainly one of the better ones. Top, as far as the depth is concerned, and the secondary. The thing is, too, we didn't talk about, but it'll be interesting to see how the backup quarterback thing falls. I still think there's a chance that the backup quarterback is not on this team. There's a chance, and I'm going to throw a name out to you, and you're going to say, well, Mike Glennon is a third-team quarterback with the Cardinals. he's not going to make that team. You got Sam Bradford and you got Rosen. He's a guy that at one time the Saints really liked. Now he signed a 3-year contract with the Bears that didn't pan out. Right. But I wouldn't be surprised, whether it's Mike Glennon or somebody else, that they bring in another veteran, because I'm not sure if what they have behind Drew Brees, although he never gets hurt, but is really, I know, is certainly is the guy.
Yeah, all of New Orleans did that, by the way, as soon as we said
absolutely.
that. There's no doubt. You mean Taysom Hill's not the savior here?
I'm not sure if I would have my quarterback, running back punch, but Sean Payton likes him, said as much, but I see a difference there, and he'd have to improve. Maybe he will.
Concerns?
Yeah, I would say my biggest concern would be Alvin Kamara and a sophomore slump. Not necessarily on his part, but the fact that he's going to have to be that much better. I mean, you look at the last couple weeks of that season, be it the rookie wall or be it teams game planning, outside of that kickoff return and I think a touchdown run against Tampa Bay, he didn't do a whole lot those last couple of weeks. Outside of that touchdown catch in the second half against the Vikings, he didn't do a whole lot in some of those games. Now, granted, Carolina has one of the best groups of linebackers in the league. Tampa Bay's linebackers, no slouch. We all know what Minnesota's defense can do. There's some tough opponents, but he's going to have to be ready for everybody's best and everybody game planning to take him out of the game, because you saw how different the Saints offense looks, like that Atlanta game in Atlanta last year when Alvin Kamara is not on the field, even with a guy like Mark Ingram healthy and ready to go. So that's one area that they're going to have to be wary of. And like Rene said, they're going to have to find a backup guy and a guy that can kind of take some of that pressure off of him and alleviate pressure on the offense as a whole.
Yeah, I would agree. Also, the wide receiver position, as you had mentioned, you've got to have some guys step up there. I'd be interested to see what Austin Carr does with this team. Yeah. A guy that was left on the roster last year, not put on the practice squad because they weren't exposed into another team, and they really need a guy that can work the underneath. Lance Moore's not there anymore, and you go right down the line on Willie Snead is gone. They didn't have that aspect last year, and it might open up Michael Thomas as well.
Yeah, and Michael Thomas needs somebody to go with him. And Cameron Merritt is, if he's healthy, and talked to Curtis Johnson a couple of times, and he seems to think he certainly knows a lot about him. Certainly knows he's back where he was. But somebody like Austin Carr is going to have to step up. Maybe it's the Traquan Smith guy, the draft choice.
Draft choice, right.
He's got a little ways to go. He's at that learning curve. But who would have thought that the draft class of 2017 would hit the bonanza like they did? So right now, they don't have as many draft choices that you think can contribute. Right. But who would have thought Ramczyk would be the starter from the get-go and Alvin Kamara? So you don't know.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Rene, Nadeau, Chris Hagan, thanks so much for being with us tonight on Inside New Orleans Sports.
Thank you.
Great job, man. Fantastic job tonight. Thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, there's a rebroadcast of this program each and every Friday night right here on WLAE-TV. That's at 10 p.m. We're on statewide Pelican Sports Television, 9 p.m. every Friday night. You can check us out there. You can also check us out at ericasher.com. You can check out all the previous episodes of Inside New Orleans Sports. You catch me on the radio, Sports 1280, 101.1 FM HD2, and the iHeart Radio app. That is weekdays noon to 2. You can also check out all the previous episodes of the radio show and the podcast at ericasher.com. And please, as always, check us out on the radio and the TV. Special thanks to the WLA production staff, including Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, also Trey Lopez, Naila Jones, and my director, William Hill. Special thanks to our guest tonight, Chris Hagan of Fox 8 Sports, Rene Nadeau of CrestCitySports.com. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week for another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports.